Welcome to Bad First Impression, a podcast about movies and where we meet them. I'm your host, Devin Warner, and with me this week, I have finally, as a guest, the producer and social media manager for this podcast, Lily Steinberg.
Hi.
We have a little bit of housekeeping to deal with before we get to either of today's movies. So this is our third
episode recording together.
This will be our third recorded episode.
And our first published episode.
The first published, God willing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if you're seeing this, I don't know. Maybe you're watching one where I'm just saying like this. So this is our fourth attempt at trying to get one episode up. Our first episode, really nobody's fault. We did kind of a test episode together that had a different name, almost a different premise. It was really good to kind of like get our sea legs a little bit, but we ultimately decided not to publish. I don't think either of us was particularly upset about that. But the second episode, if you saw our post earlier this week, at a different studio from this one, we're very happy with the work Connor does for us here. But at a different studio than this one, we had some audio equipment issues. That means the episode that we just recorded together is unusable.
Yeah.
Completely unpublishable, lost to the sands of time.
It's too bad.
It was a shame because I had a lot of fun watching that. And
I had a lot of fun making that graphic too.
Yes. And as we'll get into later, it's particularly frustrating because that episode would have been for a triple feature. So love that we saw 3 movies and had the
I was sick.
Whole conversation completely dropped. We really liked that premise, I think, and we had a lot of fun at that screening and we liked the conversation. So I think we are probably just going to go ahead and record that one again soon. So you'll be getting a alternate cut of that episode here soon, and we'll give you details on that shortly. This week, we're trying something a little bit different. We're going to talk about 2 unrelated movies that we did not see in tandem with each other, that don't have anything whatsoever to do with each other. This is a show where we often talk about movies that are important to the guest, that they have a special connection to. So, of course, this week we're going to start off by talking about the first major wide release of 2024, the horror film Night Swim.
Yeah, I think it's both yours and my number one of the year so far.
It's
the best movie of the year so far.
We're recording this on January 7th. I think it's the best film of 2024 that I've seen.
Also the worst.
Also the worst. But yeah, it's in my top 5 for sure. Night Swim. We saw this. We'll still talk, even though it's a new release. We'll talk about the theatrical experience we had here. We saw this at the AMC Lincoln Square 13.
Yeah, in the Dolby.
Easily the movie theater that we attend the most frequently, I would say.
Probably. But they have the most screenings. They have the most screens, I think, in all the AMCs in the city.
No. So I found this out kind of recently. Oh. You know how that one's called the AMC 13?
Oh, yeah. That's the amount of screens. I forgot about that.
13 is the amount
so the 25 is the amount of screens.
So the AMC 25 at 42nd Street is actually the most number of screens in the city. So
it's the most screens in a place that I would like to be in for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I know. You have... there are a lot of issues with the AMC 42nd Street.
Because it's not just the area, it's also the theater.
And I cop to them. But
I don't hate the theater.
Yes.
I would rather not go.
But I think I have much more of a kind of fondness for it.
Which is crazy because I'm the one who went when I was 9.
Yeah. Whereas you are...
I'm sick of it.
You have no patience for the AMC 42nd
Those escalators
Street.
Are way too big.
Yes.
They take way too long.
And it's various eccentricities. You don't like walking through a Dave & Buster's when you leave a new movie?
Not really. And then having to walk through Times Square to get to my train. You got to pick between walking above ground outside or walk through that horrible path from the A train to the N train where all the signs tell you to kill yourself.
Wait, what?
Oh, have you not been down there? Like when you walk, I think it's supposed to be viewed the other way, but when you view it from the A train to the other way, I don't remember exactly what it says, but it looks like it's telling you to kill yourself. It looks like it's like life isn't worth living. There's no meaning.
It says life isn't worth living.
It's
on
like
it?
It's stuff like that, yeah.
But this is like an advertisement.
I don't remember what it's
graffiti?
an ad for. No, it's an ad. It's an ad for something, but I think I always see it going the wrong way. It's probably like.
Do you think maybe you're not seeing the bottom and it says like psych, call the suicide hotline?
I think it must be for like in one of those online therapy things. I could not tell you, and I try not to go there. So it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's really depressing.
We did not see a movie at the AMC Times Square 42nd Street this week. We saw one at Lincoln Square.
Yes. Probably my favorite AMC.
Probably just kind of by default the best AMC in the city. It's the only one with a real IMAX screen.
Yeah.
It's the only one that it's not the only one, but it plays smaller release films for longer. Usually it has enough screens to accommodate them with whatever the new releases are for the week.
Mm-hmm.
This week there is only one new release. It's called Night Swim.
Yep.
It is the most recent in a long line of horror films that release in the first week of January.
A long line.
There's always one of these every year. This movie, I would argue, is trying to replicate the success of a particular one. But this movie is about a haunted swimming pool.
A magic swimming pool.
Magic swimming pool
that makes you really good at baseball.
Yeah, I guess we shouldn't. This one, I'll tell you what, we won't.
I won't do more spoilers.
We won't spoil the movie.
But that is what the movie is about.
We'll tell you the premises. So if you want to go in blind, you'll have to skip past this portion here. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about who's in it. And
I don't think anybody else even wants to see that movie.
We'll get into box office a little bit here.
Okay.
Here in a minute. The movie I think that this most wants you to associate with it in its mind is last year's Megan, a movie that came out in the first week of January, had a borderline unprecedented amount of money thrown into its ad campaign for a January release, and was a pretty solid hit.
Yeah.
Everybody.
But what Night Swim doesn't understand is you have to have at least one character serving cunt. And that's what made Megan a success. And they didn't do that.
Does Megan have one character serving cunt or multiple?
There's multiple characters serving cunt.
Okay. Wait, is it more than two? Because it's basically just her and Allison Williams, right?
Just the doll and Allison
so
Williams.
there's two cunts.
There's two serving cunt.
Yeah, I don't know how much of this we're gonna have to bleep. I'm trying to say. I feel like I can soften the impact of the word cunt by saying it as sedately as possible. From here on out, I'm gonna really try and minimize my usage of it. Night Swim has it is attempting to go for the same goofy tone that Megan is,
without understanding what made Megan goofy and fun.
So what makes Megan work that is not present in Night Swim?
I don't know a better way to say sillier, but the characters' actions are just sillier.
It's kind of crazy because the characters in Night Swim, the premise of which, by the way, is a family moves into a home with a pool where they find out that they start having these supernatural phenomena. They start encountering strange things when they swim in it.
Yeah, they start seeing weird stuff in it, except the dad gets good at baseball.
Yeah, the dad who is sick and is a former MLB player starts having his by the way, there's no cure for this disease in real life, but he starts regressing in his disease.
The cure is magic swimming pool. I don't think you understand.
Yeah. Well, he found the cure, but they find out that those health benefits come at a cost, basically. So that's the premise of Night Swim. It is a movie about a haunted swimming pool. It's a pitch that I'm surprised Stephen King didn't come up with when he was on coke in the 80s.
I'm really surprised there is not a Stephen King haunted swimming pool.
No,
even a short story.
Well, have you ever read The Mangler? It's the short story. It's Stephen King's story about a haunted laundry press.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The story is, as is the case with these, is the pitch is really crazy. And then you read it and then you're like, oh, So it's basically just like a monster or a ghost story. There's not. It's just weird that it's this strange thing. I find this crazy to be saying about a movie about a haunted swimming pool, but I think you're right that it's not silly enough.
No, and there's a couple silly moments that I actually think work to the movie's benefit. And those are the only things I like in the movie is like the coupled silly moments, some of the sillier character designs, stuff like that. It can be fun. It mostly chooses not to be.
Yes. I can't really, there are moments where like the movie kind of understands what it's doing.
Yeah, the action isn't bad. I would say like the last 15 minutes, like the climax is pretty fun.
It's pretty fun.
You have to get there though.
You have to get there. It is somehow stupider than the rest of the movie.
Yes. But that's kind of what works about it.
This is a movie that's 98 minutes long. It is the type of movie that if it were 5 minutes longer, I would have no patience for it.
I wouldn't be saying such nice things about it.
There are moments that I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend this experience.
No, but it's the sort of thing where, like I said last year, and I wonder if studios are going to be trying to ape the success of Megan.
Well, the other thing about Megan was the viral marketing campaign, which obviously this one doesn't have. And that's why people were so excited to go see Megan.
Yeah. So this is produced by Jason Blum and
as are all horror movies.
And James Wan's production company, Atomic Monster. So it has the same producing team behind it.
Yeah, but Blumhouse does so many movies.
It is weird seeing this movie come out with clearly the same intent for it to be received a certain way.
With zero marketing.
It's like they kind of threw it out to us and expected to have the same kind of weird out of nowhere success just based on a silly enough premise.
Yeah. Personally, I think the main problem with horror movies that aren't movies like Megan is that Megan has the same writer as Malignant, Akilah Cooper, and I think that she
should probably be writing most movies.
She should be writing most movies.
Malignant,
if she's writing a movie, good movie.
Yes. Undersung masterpiece.
Incredible movie.
We'll talk about Malignant some other day. If it's running, I swear to God, I will go book up the entire theater for myself to make sure that is.
I'll fly somewhere to go see it.
It's all people who appropriately appreciate Malignant for what it's worth. It's a shame because I had a lot of fun with Megan last year, and I liked that I had a PG-13 horror movie.
Yeah, and it's a fun experience when everyone's really excited to be there for a movie like that, you know?
Yeah.
That's like kind of rare.
There were like we had like a pretty electric crowd at the time.
Yeah, without it being too much, because that can also happen with something like that.
Yes. Where
people are too excited to be there. And it felt like people were excited in a normal way.
Yes. So this movie did not have no marketing. The trailer had been in theaters for a couple weeks. We'd seen it around. And there was an audience. We were in a bigger theater, so it wasn't completely filled up. Yeah. It was how would you describe the audience?
Normal. They laughed a little less than I did. I was like, by the end of it, I was really trying to surrender myself to it because I was like, look, I'm already here.
Yes.
I need something.
Yes.
So like, I can't have just wasted all my time. So I was trying to have fun, knowing it wasn't going to be that fun. But I think that like people were having a less good time than I was, but also they weren't having a bad time. I
think people were laughing at the intended moments.
Yes.
It could be to the cause of a sparsely populated theater.
Yeah.
But it like I said, it did not feel like being in the theater for Megan.
No. Sorry.
Oh, and I wonder if this trend will continue again next year, because what I'm noticing is that this is the only movie out this weekend, but the rest of January's schedule is kind of weirdly packed.
Yeah.
For January, of course.
For January, yeah. No, yeah, they're trying to make a January hit. This is the horror try. There'll be more. Yeah,
so next weekend we have Mean Girls, the secret musical remake that they are hiding very poorly. We'll probably...
Yeah, but I think if you don't know it's a musical, you would see some of that musical number stuff and be like, oh, I guess there's one musical number. Barbie had a musical number and only one.
But that movie, I think we'll see, because the buzz on it doesn't seem to be completely negative.
I haven't seen anything about the movie itself personally.
No, that's the thing is that I've seen the trailer. It looks like a perfectly fun.
Yeah, and they have done early screenings of it, so people have seen it. And if it was really, really bad, we would have probably heard about it already.
I think at that point they might have pulled it back to Paramount Plus, which is where this thing was initially intended to go.
Interesting.
Yes. We'll see how that pans out next week. In the meantime, I did want to talk a little bit about the box office here. Night Swim, we're doing this on the Sunday after it opened. Night Swim opened to number 2 to $12 million. Pretty solid for a movie like this that has basically no expectations. It opened behind Wonka, which is at number 1.
That makes sense. Did Wonka come out last week?
Wonka has been out for
2 weeks.
I think this is its 3rd weekend.
That makes sense. It's a hit.
Yeah. Wonka is doing pretty well. It is in lieu of any real like Christmas blockbuster like we typically see, is kind of cleaning house. Another movie that hid being a musical, but that people are not seeming to resent that fact once they're sitting in the theater with it.
Yeah. People are definitely anti-musical. People will definitely not see something if they know it's a musical going in, but will not necessarily dislike it when they're in it.
People aren't.
So I get it.
People aren't coming out and saying, "Oh, this is a musical. I don't want anything. I feel cheated." I think people are coming out and saying that was quite a delightful time, which is largely my thoughts on it. I went and saw that one without you due to lack of interest on your part. I had a pretty fun time with it. Really, my only real issue with it is that Timothée Chalamet, I think, is really he's really miscast in the role.
It's the kind of thing where it's not even that it looks bad to me. It's that I would rather have that on at home. That's just the kind of thing I don't really want to go out of my way to see it in a theater.
I don't really think you like super need to. I had fun enough time watching it.
No, but I would enjoy if that thing's on HBO. I would probably enjoy having it on.
Yes, absolutely.
It looks pleasant.
I saw that this recently surpassed Dune as Timothée Chalamet's highest grosser.
That's a really funny thing to keep track of.
Obviously, the first Dune has a big old asterisk next to it because it was a tail end of the lockdown release,
and it was also released on HBO.
and it was an HBO release as well. So, my only real detraction from that is it's a very optimistic, charming take on the character, which is fine for the movie that it exists within.
Yeah, but also isn't really the thing that people like about the character.
No,
to be fair.
But the thing is, I'm fine with you saying, here's our take. We hope you like this. I think that's totally okay to do with the character.
I get that.
The problem with Timothée Chalamet is that he doesn't totally meet the movie at the level of kind of twee optimism that the character is clearly written at.
Yeah.
He has this kind of distracted look in his eye the entire time. And he looks like he is always just thinking about how much pussy he's going to get later, which is really distracting in a children's film. He doesn't, and that's the thing, is that he doesn't have as hard an edge as Gene Wilder does, who is playing it like a barely concealed psychopath in the original.
He's a child murderer.
And he doesn't, that's the other thing too.
A child serial killer.
I don't really, and I don't really like, wouldn't really say I like this more than the Johnny Depp performance, which is something I haven't seen in a long time either. But I remember that having a little bit of the chaotic energy of the original, whereas this
it doesn't remind me of the original, but it does feel like what Johnny Depp would do in a Tim Burton movie. I know that sounds really simple, but like it does. It just feels like, Tim Burton, Willy Wonka. It's a take.
It feels from a playbook. So sorry, I kicked the fern. If you're listening, I just kicked a fern here on set, so my bad. Night Swim, do you recommend?
No,
you don't need to go out. I mean, unless you are dead set on going to a movie this weekend, in which case.
Or if you're like, I have A-list, I really have to pee, there's nowhere else to go. And also, it doesn't matter if I spend an hour and a half getting home. Yeah,
an underrated selling point of having a movie subscription membership in the city. We have AMCs and you get 3 movies a week that way. We don't usually see 3 movies at an AMC.
And most people don't.
Week. Most people don't. But New York City, where there are no accessible bathrooms anywhere without spending $8 on a drink, it's really great to book a movie, run inside, use the bathroom, and then leave.
Run inside, use the bathroom, get a popcorn, leave.
So if what you're going to do is that Night Swim, if it has a time starting soon at a theater near you
fake
in
money
Manhattan,
to it,
then go ahead. Why not? And then that's the other thing is this movie is not bad enough to really upset me.
No, but it's also not bad enough to be fun or even to be fun to talk about.
I should say before we move on from it.
Yeah.
It has two pretty overqualified actors at the center of it. You have Carrie Condon, pretty fresh off a Best Supporting Actress nomination.
I think that Wyatt
Russell
Russell
is the appropriate movie for Wyatt Russell. By the way,
it's not that I necessarily, but that obviously I told you I like him in his Black Mirror episode, and it would be cool to see him do a real horror movie. But also it's not like he's shown himself to be this amazing actor.
No, but
he hasn't been in anything big. This doesn't not make sense for him.
He clearly has his dad's charisma.
Yeah,
you just see him on there, and this is natural.
Well, because what were his other things? He was in that episode of Black Mirror. He was in Winter Soldier show.
He's in the Winter Soldier show.
I'm sure he's in other stuff, but that's what people know him from.
Off the top of my head, cannot tell you what are the big Wyatt Russell projects.
I don't know.
That's the other thing is without looking them up, which I don't really want to stop and do.
I also get him confused sometimes visually with there's a guy who's in, I haven't seen Letterkenny, but he's in that and he's in Descendants. And he's also the guy who's one of the football guys in 22 Jump Street. And I always get the two of them confused.
Wyatt Russell is in 22 Jump Street?
Not Wyatt Russell, this other guy. And I get the two of them confused and I always have to think and be like, that's not Wyatt Russell.
Yeah.
Descendants, the Disney Channel movie.
Yes, I know. Not the Oscar winning.
Yes.
Yes. It's a very important distinction because people are mixing those movies up all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. I do love the idea of somebody watching The Descendants and then watching Descendants 2 and 3, the Disney Channel movies, not really understanding that they're separate and being like, that series took a really weird turn after the first one. I have no idea what happened there.
Well, the opposite of that would be someone turning on The Descendants for their children because they just have no idea.
A really sad movie about, I think it's about a guy grieving his dead wife. It would be... I mean, the most upsetting, not upsetting, but the most strange is if, it turns out your kid's like, I really loved it. I really
we got to put on the sequel. You put on the second one. They're like, what the hell is this?
Not as good as the first. We got to get
Mom,
Clooney
turn
back.
this off.
This is trash. Night Swim. It's fine. I don't know. I can't be mad at it.
That's the best way to describe that movie. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. I can't be mad at it, but I also can't be so mad at it that I'm angry.
There are worse ways
that did not make any sense.
Yeah, I think... I'm glad you called it out because I would have just mowed right over that one. Night Swim, a great movie to book if you have to use the restroom in Manhattan.
It's a wonderful review.
That's a good tagline. I think they should put that on the poster.
They should.
Yeah, I don't know. You could do worse. And when talking about the horror movie that inevitably gets released the first month of every year, the first week of January every year, you could and I have done a lot worse than this. There was a reboot, I think, of The Grudge a couple years ago.
Did you go see that? I didn't see that.
No, I watched it at home in lockdown because it was a 2020 release. It was one of the last movies to get a proper release.
Nice. It was like that and Bad Boys.
It was like that. Highest grossing film of 2020, Bad Boys for Life.
Oh yeah, it wasn't Sonic.
Yeah, it wasn't Sonic. It wasn't Sonic, and it wasn't Birds of Prey had the kind of embarrassment of flopping immediately before having the excuse of getting out of all movies. Not making
wasn't
any
the
money.
thing that Sonic was so popular? I think people weren't seeing Birds of Prey.
Sonic was always going to do better than that because
yes.
Birds of Prey had an initial
did particularly
title,
bad. Yes,
had an initial title that is terrible.
Yes.
And I have a lot of fun.
And they didn't
with
change
that.
it for a while.
I had a lot of fun watching that movie.
I really liked that movie.
I haven't revisited it since. Don't really have any desire to.
No, but I did see it twice in theaters because I saw it with my mom. Good segue, but I saw it with my mom.
That is, because of the last minute change of plans and having to reschedule a kind of redux of the next episode that was supposed to be the previous episode. We are also just talking about another movie that we saw this weekend. That is a good segue. We need to talk about mom movies. We're talking about Elaine May's 1970 directorial debut, A New Leaf, a movie you and I both love.
Yes.
We went through Elaine May's movies a couple years ago.
In Lockdown in the Old Apartment.
In Lockdown in the Old Apartment. And we love this one as we do pretty much all of her movies.
Yeah.
This is the type of movie that we see on a schedule on a theater's website. In this case, It was showing at the Metrograph all weekend as part of a series of films featuring small roles from James Coco. And he's got an extremely memorable one in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the posting and immediately said, let's take your mom to this.
Yeah.
This will be a fun time. Previous entries into the canon of movies we take Lily's mom to are Sweet Charity and
Desperately Seeking
Susan.
Mine and my mom's favorite movie.
Yes. We saw both of those at the Film Forum, I think.
We saw both of those at the Film Forum. Different theaters inside the Film Forum.
Real fan of moms. And so I wanted to...
Real fan of my mom's favorite movies.
Yes. I wanted to, before we get into A New Leaf, which is...
great movie.
Which is a great movie. Before we get into that,
Spoiler
I wanted
alert.
to... Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you didn't catch it in the last 54 years, it's pretty good. I still am kind of in that mental headspace from being a kid where I only 90s kids will understand. I think of a movie in the 70s as being a 20-year-old movie, and it's now a 50-year-old movie.
I do that, but it's like I have that with the early 2000s, where so like I always think of the 80s as 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's just because that's when I was conscious.
It's just a weird passage of time.
Every time I'm like, yeah, it was 20 years ago, that was 30 years ago, and I'll find out that someone who was born in the 80s is, what are they, 40? They're in their 40s now? And I'm like, and I'm always like, whoa, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep. You could
That's
be
crazy.
born in 84 and be 40 years old right now.
Yep. Yeah, that like doesn't work in my head. I don't get it.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about so a mom movie, which I would describe as a movie that you can take your mom to, that is still actually a good movie. Yeah. Because it's a very different thing from...
You're talking about moms like their kids.
Yeah. Not to be rude to moms, but I think it's very different.
We got to take her to a family-friendly movie. I'm looking up the rating beforehand to make sure there's nothing that's inappropriate for moms.
You don't want anything objectionable for moms. But the other...
No mom slander.
The other category I would kind of like put to the side here, and I don't want to get into too many because I don't want to offend the many moms who listen, is movies your mom likes, which is very different from mom movies.
But that's also different from movies your mom likes, like that's...
Yes. Well, we're speaking broadly here.
Yes.
We are absolutely stereotyping moms.
Yes.
Movies your mom likes are typically quite bad. And I
don't think that's fair.
You don't think that's fair?
I don't think that's fair to moms.
Okay. I don't know. What's a movie your mom liked recently?
My mom likes A New Leaf. We saw it with her and she was like, I love that movie.
All right. Well, maybe this assassination attempt on moms is maybe I'm going to put it over in my pocket.
Obviously there are moms who are not into movies, who only watch bad movies. Yes. And then there are moms who are into movies.
Yes. And no disrespect, mother, I think you'd fall into the previous camp, and that's okay. You're busy. You have kids to raise. You got work to do.
I've gotten a ton of really good recommendations from my mom, honestly.
Yeah. Well, your mom is more...
My mom's a little more into movies.
Your mom has more of a
like, I wouldn't call her like a cinephile, but she's absolutely been paying attention since she was a child.
Yes.
But I've gotten like actively good recommendations from her.
Okay. That's fair. Let's move on from me criticizing mothers as a group. Mom movies that maybe you pick out, but that if you suggest to your mom, she's based on the premise willing to trust that it's good, or is likely to already have a previous relationship to it. What are the qualities of a mom movie? Like, what are the things that are true of most of them that makes it most likely that your mom is going to be excited to go to it with you?
I would say about adults. So like not like a teenager movie.
Yeah, you can't have it be about teens.
Unless it's something that they watched when they were a teen.
Yeah. In the case of like your mom, basically anything about the Beatles.
Anything about the Beatles, invite my mom, she's down.
Yeah.
Also, my mom's probably already got tickets for it.
Yeah. We text her and she's like, obviously I'm going all 3 showings this weekend. Like, I got the newsletter. What are you talking about? About adults, especially in the case of the ones we've taken them to. Well, it's actually not true of A New Leaf. It doesn't have a female protagonist.
No, it doesn't.
Walter Matthau is the protagonist.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, I would say prominent featuring of female characters.
Yes, absolutely. Feminine energy.
Feminine energy.
I think is a good way to put that. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't know. What are other things that you think make it like what qualities when you just see that a movie is showing?
I would say not necessarily like has to be fully a comedy, but I think comedic elements.
Yeah, moms don't like things that are too serious.
Yeah, something light. Yeah. Or and also it could be about a kid, but it has to be about a mother-daughter relationship or a mother-son relationship if you got to take your mom to it.
Yeah,
and
because moms have daughters and sons. Well, not every mom, not all moms, but they have. Yeah, different moms have different types of children. I don't know if you knew that. It's a new development in mom science.
I'm reading some studies on this one.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just pull up a study on moms. I'm going to do this in private browsing. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. It has to be about adult subjects, but approach it in a light or comedic way. Right? Yeah. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Like, and also because the reason I was thinking adults, not teenagers, was specifically because like we generally take my mom to slightly older movies that we think that she might have an affinity for, but I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, 16 Candles is playing. Let's take my mom to that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one we took her to recently that was like a new release. Last new thing we saw.
Was it Glass Onion?
Was it? It might have been Glass Onion.
I think it was, but that was also a fun one to bring her to. I think a group comedy is what I would call that.
Yeah, she had a fun time.
A group comedy with people that we know that she likes. We are really talking about mothers like they are children.
I know, but that's the problem with generalization at all, right? Is that you reduce people. I think all I've done is just make the point that stereotyping is bad, which, to be clear, I believed prior to this record. I didn't need to like learn that one fresh.
It's fine. When we get out of here, we'll let my mom out of her little playroom that we put her in.
Yeah.
Well, and then we'll hold her hand and we'll take her home.
Yeah. Well, if she would stop making messes in the living room, then it wouldn't be an issue. Then
just like Elaine May's character in A New Leaf.
She wouldn't have to be in the enclosure. That's right. Yeah. Apologies to your mother. This is not a dissimilar character that Elaine is playing from her.
To my mother?
Yeah. She is. So let's start. This movie is about Walter Matthau plays a character named Henry. Henry Graham, who is a trust fund baby who has completely run out of all of his money. He spent it pretty wantonly and irresponsibly.
It refuses to work.
And it refuses to work. There's a really, to be clear, we are going to spoil A New Leaf, which I know is, it is 54 years old.
54 years old.
53 years old, actually.
And it's also, how long is it? It's like 90 minutes?
It's like 90 minutes. So pause this, go watch it, come back, listen to us.
Or don't come back, just watch A New Leaf again.
Well, I would like them to come back. Ideally, they live in a world where they've seen A New Leaf and they also come back and listen to this episode.
They've seen A New Leaf and then they pause it and watch it again and then they come back.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
I just want to get the steps clear here.
If they've already seen it, they're going to be good. Maybe this will inspire them to, after they listen, go back and watch it again. Because it's a movie that is rewarded by rewatches.
Okay.
But Walter Matthau, he has this really great montage at the beginning where he is informed by his accountant that he has no more money and he has no assets that he can pull from, and he doesn't have any stocks that he can liquidate. He has nothing. He's completely out. And he has this long montage where he forlornly walks to country clubs and fencing clubs and boathouses and looks at all the things that rich people get to enjoy and like sadly bids them farewell, like drives his Ferrari around Manhattan. It's really, really funny. And he, when talking to his butler, decides that
his gentleman's gentleman.
His gentleman's gentleman. A really funny little performance there. That's what he refers to himself as, right?
Yes.
That's George Rose playing Harold Butler.
Wonderful.
So he gives him the idea to marry rich so that he can keep up appearances and continue his lifestyle without having to work.
And then also inherit the money.
Yes. Well, that comes in a little bit later.
Well, he's always like when he's looking for a wife, he's always asking, do you have any other family members? Specifically because he wants to make sure that he gets all the money.
Yes, but that's a twist that he throws in. Henry decides he wants to get married so he can get the money. I think the line that Harold gives him is like, how does he put it? He's like, the fastest way to acquire property without any labor is marriage.
Yes.
Henry, who's a really like kind of sticklery guy, he's prickly. He doesn't like being around anybody in really any circumstances. We actually see a couple scenes of him like these people who he's so desperate to stay in the same social strata as. He hates every single interaction he has with them. He can't be around them at all. And he resolves, okay, I'll get married to somebody rich and then I'll murder them. And that's most of the dramatic tension of the movie, because eventually he does meet this really bookish woman named Henrietta, who is the only remaining heir to a large fortune, immediately woos her off her feet. And then most of the movie is him trying to manage having this. Well, I guess let's talk a little bit about Henrietta, because she's a really interesting character.
She's so wonderful. Most of the movie when she comes in is antics involving her ridiculousness.
Yes. She is like, to the degree that I would call her a danger to herself.
Yeah.
Clumsy.
Yes.
Like absolutely cannot even handle a cup of tea. Yeah. There's a set piece where she spills a cup of tea accidentally. When somebody bends over to help her pick it up, she spills even more of it. And while they're like trying to help her, seems to have lost the motor control to know how to hold a teacup in the process.
And that's also, I think, when she leans over and then she sits up and knocks his teaccup out of his hands.
Yes.
Incredible. Yeah, incredible movie. She's so cute.
Elaine May, very, very cute in this movie. She did not initially want to star in it. I mean, as you can probably predict about a movie directed by a woman in 1971, she had a really hard time fighting for agency in this. She was before this known primarily for her collaborations with Mike Nichols, the director of The Graduate, who had already started directing movies at that point. She wanted to split off from him, kind of be known, for her own work. She fought with the studio over who was going to play this initially, after fighting for like more of a salary, because she wrote, directed, and starred in this. And the studio wanted a star in the role of the woman, which she objected to, because she said the movie is about the male character and his, and his
ineptitude
and his ineptitude and his story. So she's like, the woman should be somebody who sinks into the background, who is really not a prominent. And I would agree that Henrietta is not really fully a character in the same way.
Yeah. She's more of a set piece and like purposefully.
She is a problem. She's like,
she's a problem to solve.
Yes, if we're looking at the story as Henry's, which
it is.
Elaine May, it is. She is a problem for Henry to solve. And she kind of, she suggested somebody, or she wanted the right to pick somebody. The studio said, no, how about you just play her and we don't pay you any extra money?
Jesus.
Yeah. Sounds like that was the first of many issues she had with this, including she had a much longer original cut of this movie, which we'll get into a little bit later as we get further into what actually happens in this thing. But so once they're married, which happens pretty quickly, it's about halfway through, he realizes,
known each other for like a week.
Yes, he realizes that this incredibly wealthy woman, who's even more inept, he's not the first person to have this idea, that she's surrounded by servants who are, stealing from the till, people who are just in general taking advantage of her. And he starts trying to get them all out of his way so that he can do this more efficiently.
But he's also in the process, he's still like taking care of her because she is completely unable to do anything herself, including putting on a nightgown.
Yeah, there's an extremely long sequence of her.
Really long.
It starts out because she walks into a room having put on a toga-styled nightgown by putting her head through the armhole. And it's like...
It's really long. It's like 5 minutes.
It's like a 5+ minute scene of him like slowly and methodically trying to like instruct her as if she is a child.
Just like moms.
Just like moms, as we've clearly taken a stance on here, and that you love painting me further into that corner. She like he has to like lower her arm into it so that he can then pull the thing over her other. It's a really long sequence, and I actually don't want to spend the same amount of time describing how it works.
It's an incredible sequence.
It's a funny set piece. You find that Henry and Henrietta, their relationship is defined by, she genuinely falls for him, I think. She meets him and is really strucken by his confidence, by the way that he treats her special, whereas everybody else kind of treats her like, you know, like background noise. And she appreciates that she's actually being noticed by him. A lot of his affection towards her at the beginning is feigned, that he wants to just make as good an impression of her as possible. She kind of like, I'm trying. Most of the movie is Walter Matthau kind of like guiding her, like how to not even like it's not like he's like teaching her how to exist within polite society, because she's done that her entire life. It's more that he is like, it's like how you would teach a toddler to behave.
No, yeah, because she's like, she can't even eat a meal without getting it all over herself.
I know.
Which is also very me.
There is a hilarious shot where they're getting up from a table at a restaurant. The waiter pulls out the table because she's sitting in the booth. And when she gets up, it reveals that the entire booth next to her is just covered in crumbs.
And also her lap.
Yeah, and her lap is covered in crumbs.
Completely me. I always feel like whenever I'm at a restaurant where they have like the paper table thing, I feel like my section always has the most crumbs.
I know. We walked, that scene came up, and I looked over to you and you were like, I know, you don't need to, please don't put too fine a point on it. I'm aware.
I know.
I'm aware there are similarities.
I'm aware of all the similarities between me and this really messy woman.
Yes. The ending as it exists, in the only known cut, is that Henry, after realizing that this marriage has actually been really good for him, has shown him how to have a little bit of ambition, and that he doesn't even really dislike the idea of being with Henrietta, decides that there's a sequence it's a canoe, or it's a kayak. It's a canoe.
It doesn't really matter to me.
There's a sequence in a canoe where he has the opportunity to leave her to die in a river.
Someone who's really into boating is going to give me specifically a 1 star.
I know. Yeah. They're going to be like, doesn't even know the difference between canoes and kayaks.
Yeah. Did I tell you about the time when I was in high school and I got death threats for saying that dressage looked weird? Like
the horse dancing?
Yeah. I got horse girls in my DMs. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about. I hope you die.
What scenario? Where were you criticizing dressage?
Tumblr.
You were just on, yeah.
I was just on Tumblr, and I just wrote like, because I had never seen it before, and I was like 15, and I was like, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen, and I just like made a post that was like, dressage is hilarious. What are they doing? And I was like, you don't know anything about the fucking horses.
I think the lesson here is to keep your mouth shut about things that you don't understand, because what you're saying is you didn't know anything about it. You saw a new and different thing.
But I wasn't even like, I wasn't being mean about it. I was just like, isn't this funny? And like horse girls were like, how dare you say something like that?
You don't know.
You don't know how good it is for the horse's legs. And now I know how good it is for the horse's legs.
Good for their legs?
Apparently it's like good exercise for them. Like it's actually really good for the horses to do dressage.
I imagine what would probably be good for them is to run.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Wild. This is what random girls told me on Tumblr. They were probably the same age or younger than me.
They're probably not verified.
But they were like all caps death threats. Like absolutely crazy.
Why did you... You just saw dressage pop up in your Tumblr feed?
No, I think it was like the Olympics were on. And I was just talking to my friend about dressage, and then I got home and I was still thinking about it.
Okay. But so you just logged on and were just like, dressage.
Weird.
1 star. Didn't like it. Not for me. How did we get to dressage?
Oh, I said I don't care if it was kayaking or canoeing.
You don't care if it's kayaking or canoeing. So I'm looking forward to the death threats we get from that
the
nautical
community.
Right.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I have experience getting death threats from niche communities.
So we're not scared of you. If you have a problem with our lack of seafaring knowledge. Anyway, the canoe.
Yes.
Yak.
Canoe yak.
She falls out of it. He has an opportunity to have a pretty clean death of her and decides instead to save her and resolves to, live happily ever after with her.
Yeah.
What's crazy.
It's actually quite sweet.
It is incredibly sweet for a
But
movie. I'm
actually rooting for him at that point. I'm like, aw.
The thing about Matthau is that he's playing the problem in not just in the story of this movie, but like in society, like guys like him who want to live above everyone else while contributing nothing are, for obvious reasons, like the largest societal problem we have. And he is so incredibly charming and sweet that you do really want him to. It's not that you want him to kill her. The movie never takes that tone, but you do want. You want him
to fall in love with her.
You want him to fall in love with her because she's so goddamn cute.
She's so adorable.
And he is like made cute by being around her. And like his
one of the original like quirky girls, like Zooey Deschanel.
His initial flirtation with her works so well because you can tell he's like, there's a scene where like, or when she spills tea, she spills it onto an oriental rug and the host of that party starts yelling at Henrietta. And he immediately stands up and defends her really vociferously, really passionately. What's the phrase he says?
You have an erotic obsession with this rug.
You have an erotic obsession with this rug. And that's coming from a place of, he also hates all these people.
Yeah, no, exactly. They do have something in common.
And he doesn't really realize
that.
They
both have no friends.
Yes, they have no... they're both alone. And in the fact that
their friends are people that they pay.
The fact that they exist within the society, have no desire to leave it, but hate everyone in it, means that they are kind of a perfect match.
They're kind of wonderful together.
Because he just
needed to get over his wanting to kill her. Yeah. And everything was fine.
I know.
Happily ever after.
That's a recurrent thing in Elaine May's works. She makes movies about men who seem... Getting married seems to be the absolute last thing they want to or should do, but they are nonetheless compelled to do so.
Yeah.
Because The Heartbreak Kid, a movie that's come up on the show before, virtually impossible to watch because the distribution rights to it are due to a series of buyouts owned by a pharmaceutical company who has no interest in...
They let us watch it at the Roxy last year.
That was on an old 35 millimeter print that was in pretty solid condition considering the age of the movie.
I thought that was good. I mean, it was better condition than the 240p we watched on YouTube.
Yes, absolutely. That is also a movie about a man who... It seems like all his problems would be solved if he would stop trying to get married.
If he would just like maybe sit for like a minute.
Yeah. I mean, the recurring...
Maybe like sit like alone for like a little bit.
The kind of recurring theme of these is be nice to your wife, even though, yes, she's a little annoying. That's kind of the thing, the takeaway of these, because like in that movie as well.
Yeah, but in that movie, you're not rooting for him at all.
No, you're not, because I mean...
In that movie, you're like, I kind of hope he dies.
And I think that is more in line with Elaine May's sensibilities and the original cut of A New Leaf that I think she wanted to release, which is much more cynical, much like more like black comedy, because it's like you said, this movie is fairly nasty. It's about a man plotting to kill his wife purely for her money, like who he married initially just for his money. And there's this scene where Henrietta's lawyer has kind of figured out that he's broke and he's marrying her for her money exclusively. And he presents proof of this to Henrietta. And Henry's response is to lie that he was suicidal until the day he met her.
Yep. Wonderful.
And you are in that scene where you are watching this man lie specifically so that he can continue tricking this woman. Like it's not only just stealing her money, but like also I imagine this would be devastating.
This is emotional manipulation.
This would be devastating for her because, as you see, she has no real connections with other people. And you're rooting for him. That's how crazy it is. And I think
it's just because the movie is so heightened. Like it's not in a way that like something like Heartbreak Kid, that feels like a real guy. And you're like, oh, I know that guy and I hate that guy.
He's scarily real. And Charles Grodin is a little
too good at it.
A little too good at it. Can we tell the story about your grandma?
You can tell the story about my grandma.
Yeah, I think we were taught. It was actually not long after we saw The Heartbreak Kid, and we were visiting your grandma. And
my grandma didn't tell us. My mom told us.
Your mom told us the story.
Yeah, we didn't mention it to my grandma.
And your mom immediately said, how did she say it?
She said that my grandma went on a date with Charles Grodin and he was quote unquote fresh.
Fresh is I was first
when would this have been in like the 50s probably?
I don't know the timeline of your grandma's life.
I think because it would have been in college. I think it would have been like the early 50s.
This is prior to any fame.
Maybe the mid 50s.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah, so early to mid 50s would have to be when it is. Fresh is so much better a word for it
than I would. That is such a funny word.
And it's better. Like in my head, I thought it was just as like straightforward as handsy is what I had remembered.
That's what I think it is.
And I think that's what it's implying. I'm not saying that doesn't mean he's handsy. Saying he's handsy is so much worse because of how much more straightforward it is.
Yeah.
But Charles Grodin is a RIP, I should say. Sorry that we're dragging your name.
My grandma's still alive.
Yeah. Well, she's doing great. Sorry that we're dragging Charles Grodin's.
Maybe he died because he was weird to my grandma.
It's not impossible.
And she's more powerful.
Your grandma's pretty powerful, is what I'll say. But sorry, Charles. I love you. I love Charles Grodin. I don't.
But I would take my grandma over Charles Grodin.
I would take your grandma over Charles Grodin. Yeah.
Is that a mean thing to say?
No, she's your grandma. That's fine.
I'm allowed to say that. I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, it's settled. Like God,
it is settled. God already chose. God had the choice between Charles Grodin or my grandma. He was like, Charles Grodin, get him up here. He's entertaining.
Yeah. But the Heartbreak Kid, yes, you have someone who does not have the likability of Walter Matthau, who despite playing, I would say like, if you were just evaluating the morality of the Charles Grodin character in Heartbreak Kid and the Walter Matthau character in New Leaf, they're both about as bad as the other.
They're both really bad. I mean, Matthau is plotting murder,
so maybe
which is arguably worse than cheating.
It's worse than the Heartbreak Kid, if you haven't seen it, is an absolute American masterpiece, but it's about a man who,
spoiler, sorry.
Yeah. While on his honeymoon, meets what he thinks is a better woman and starts trying to woo her to the dismay of everybody.
Everyone watching the movie is like,
yes.
Ye old uncut gems, if you will.
But it has a similar energy in that every moment of it is hilarious and upsetting.
Yes, and I do think it's about the same type of thing.
Yes.
You know, it's similarly, it's the same thing where it's a satire about a man who's very clearly written through a woman's lens.
Yes, and is Uncut Gems written by a woman?
No. No. I thought we were talking about A New Leaf.
No. I'm sorry. Yes. I mean,
sorry. That was very different. We were having very different conversations for a minute there.
Well, we need to communicate better. But Uncut Gems is similar to these two movies about kind of the compulsive behaviors that we just cannot stop ourselves from engaging in.
Yes.
Like no matter what. Even like you'll see them be like, I know that this is not even like a strategically smart choice for me to be doing regardless of any morality. And I will still continue to engage in this behavior.
Yeah.
Going back to A New Leaf, the original cut of the movie was reportedly over 3 hours.
Nice.
It involved a subplot of Henry killing,
Henrietta?
No. Henry killing a couple of the house servants who were taking advantage of her because they tried to blackmail him. Oh. Henrietta learns that he did this, but doesn't know that he was doing it to off the competition. And in exchange for his wife not turning him in, he kind of resolves to accept being married to her as its own form of prison sentence.
So he's like a sorry.
Yeah, he's a murderer and she's complicit in it.
A murderer.
Yes. It ends the same way.
Not that if he murdered her, he wouldn't be a murderer, but that is the point of the movie.
Yes.
So it's just interesting to hear that he murdered someone else.
Yes. This is a really interesting case.
I would watch that.
This is a really interesting case of studio intervention because as it exists, I think the movie is basically 100% successful. It does everything it sets out to do.
And I would absolutely call it like a romantic comedy in a way that I don't think I would call that a romantic comedy.
No, that is like a pretty, that's similar to The Heartbreak Kid in that it would be a pitch black comedy.
Yeah, but this doesn't necessarily follow all the beats of a romantic comedy, but I think it is firmly a romantic comedy.
Yes, absolutely. And the kind of sweet, fairly saccharine ending.
Yeah.
That,
perfect.
Again, that's the thing, is that not even 5 minutes before the end of the movie, he is still debating whether or not to kill her.
She's like dying, and he's like, "Should I do it?"
Literally, like she's clinging to a log in the water.
He like finally figured out how he was going to kill her,
and he's like, "Oh, this is great," and he's like slowly taking his shoes off, and she's waving like, "Would you? Hey, if you decide you still want to save me, that's still an option for you." And he like, you see him sitting there and being like, I don't know. I'm not even 100% sure I want to save her.
Some of my favorite things from slightly earlier in the movie are in the parts where he could totally kill her or even let her die accidentally, and he continues to like choose to save her because he just doesn't even see it. So like the one where she's tied herself to the tree so that she can lean over to grab the plant.
Yeah, I should say
it is really obvious that
I should just say Henrietta is a botanist.
We're kind of assuming that people who are here have seen this movie. We've spoiled the whole thing.
Really? I don't know. I think there are people who listen to this who haven't seen it, who might not go see it. And this is important. Okay. I think story context. Sure. I don't know. You think that everybody watches every movie?
No, just that we've already spoiled the whole thing anyway.
I'll tell you what, I feel bad for you if this was your first exposure to A New Leaf, because it's a really fun watch. But she's a botanist who is
looking for a new leaf.
She wants to discover a new new species of fern. I do
legitimately think that the title of this movie is incredible. I love the title.
It is
really
great.
Perfect.
It's really great because one of the things that the ultimate deciding factor where Henry decides not to allow Henrietta to die is she has, on their honeymoon, she discovers a fern, and as a gesture, names it after him instead of her. It's a really sweet moment. It is like, it's insane how sweet. And I imagine
shouldn't be that sweet
in a darker comedy.
Yeah,
you can see how that would be even funnier, honestly, because you would see
so much of it is so slapstick.
Yes, you would see the tragedy of. I know there's literally like when he's imagining them going on a trip together. There's like a fantasy sequence where he imagines her being mauled by a bear, which is just a guy in a suit.
A guy in a suit who comes up behind her and just hugs her.
Yeah, and just like she's flailing in his arms. But as a gesture, she names the fern after him. And as he's literally about to abandon her to drown, he runs into the same species of fern that she discovered and just, realized, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to be loved by this person.
But so while she's grabbing the fern, just to my previous point, she's like dangling off the side of the cliff. He's literally researching how he can kill her. And you're looking at her, and he could so clearly just push her off this thing. He could just untie the thing and say that she died. But I really think that it's in moments like that you can really see that he has always kind of cared for her. And I know that sounds really silly to be like, well, he didn't kill her, so he must have cared for her. But I think in the heightened reality that this movie lives in, I think that's what that is supposed to show.
Really, I would actually kind of disagree. I think there's actually a really wonderful shot of that where he is heavily foregrounded in extreme close-up, holding up a book titled Introduction to Toxicology, where in the background of the shot, you can see her with a rope tied around her so she doesn't fall off a cliff, reaching for a fern that's kind of hanging off of it. I would actually kind of argue that the comedy of that, more in line with like what the intended original cut was that he is so lost in trying to kill her one specific way that other opportunities don't become clear to him.
That's fair. That he's actually too stupid.
I think your read makes sense with the theatrical cut.
Yes, I think it's like that. Yes, that he's not seeing it, but it's unconscious for that reason. I guess maybe
yeah. But this is kind of a difficult.
Maybe I'm just being nice.
The thing is that like that's the ultimate. This is the studio cut. Elaine May had it taken away from her, even though she was contractually owed final say. Walter Matthau, it sounds like, was not very supportive of her in, wanting to get the original cut. He thought that she was taking on too much being writer, director, and actor.
Sure. And also 3 hours is a bit long for a first movie, although
a comedy.
But back in the day, things were different.
What do you mean?
Movies were longer.
Or
rather, there were more long movies.
Sure.
In a way that nowadays you say your movie's 3 hours and you get people screaming on Twitter.
I know. There are so many people who immediately will. I'm like, well, you are either interested or you're not interested in it.
Yeah, I do think we should bring back the intermission.
I agree with you.
I completely think we should bring back the intermission. I think that it's crazy that we don't have one. But a movie can be good and be 3 hours long.
Absolutely. There are plenty of good long movies.
There's tons of good long movies, even in the past couple of years.
Yeah. It's kind of difficult to talk about because the cut we have that exists against the wishes of the director is a really good movie.
It is still a very good movie.
It's a great movie.
And it works for what it is with the plot beats that were forced on it.
I cannot imagine how effective the meaner, nastier movie would be.
And I'm sure it's still really good.
Yes.
And I'm glad we get a movie like The Heartbreak Kid.
Given how good The Heartbreak Kid is, and it sounds like that's more the tone of the comedy that May initially wanted to make A New Leaf into.
But the slapstick in A New Leaf is so good.
It is.
I want it to be this crazy comedy.
The thing is that, on a more straightforward kind of broad level, I think it's the funnier movie between the two.
It is. Well, it's much more of a laugh out loud comedy. Obviously, there's laugh out loud moments in Heartbreak Kid, but you go to A New Leaf in a theater to sit there and laugh. You go to Heartbreak Kid to watch it in a theater. If that makes sense.
You're not quite, when you're watching Heartbreak Kid, I wouldn't quite call it cringing. You are just kind of,
No, that's why I would compare it to something like Uncut Gems, because it's not that you're cringing, it's that you're just deeply uncomfortable with the decisions this character is making.
Because the mistakes they're making, everybody has someone in their life they can relate to who makes these types of bad decisions.
It feels like you're watching your shitty friend. I always would describe, like, I don't think you've read any Sally Rooney books, but that's how I would describe all of those, is they feel kind of realistic in the sense that I feel like I'm watching my friend making these decisions and there's nothing I can do about it.
And you are just kind of
stuck.
Yeah, which is like party to watching a real life friend make a bad decision. And you can offer advice, solicited or otherwise.
But just like reading a book, they're not going to listen to you.
No, that's the thing, is they're just, it is kind of the same thing as reading a book or watching a movie and kind of shouting at it in frustration. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have. Let's talk about the audience and the theater a little bit. As I've said before, this is at the Metrograph. I would say post-COVID, this is probably the theater that got us into habitual movie going again, right?
You think so?
I don't know.
I honestly don't know.
Is there another rep theater that you more associate in your mind with that?
I'm not really sure, because I think there was also Movie Go, which they're not a part of.
Yes, they are. They just very rarely.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've just never been to one with them. I assumed they weren't.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. But so like our first Movie Go, I believe, was like the IFC, and we started going more to the IFC and more to the Film at Lincoln Center theaters. And those were like the big ones. But we did go to the Metrograph. The problem with the Metrograph for us is just that it's kind of hard to get to.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, for most people, if you don't live on the Lower East Side, it's pretty hard to get to.
It is a pain in the ass to get to.
And I guess if you live like directly in Brooklyn, but specifically on the F line.
But I love it because they have they have a wider range of programming. I don't want to disparage the other theaters, because others have equally eclectic collections, but they have what is kind of developing in the rep theater scene in New York in general is an admiration. And I suppose it's just how time works, but I'm glad that this is where we're getting to. More of an admiration for films of the 2000s.
Yeah.
And
also just in general, I like that Metrograph, especially in particular, when they're doing these collections, they're very unpretentious about it.
Yeah.
They'll always choose something that fits in the category just because it fits in the category, not because they're like, this is one of the greats that we've heard of.
And I think that breadth of movies in close tandem with each other is often why I like going there so much.
Was it Final Destination that we saw there?
We saw Final Destination.
That was fun.
There.
That was so much fun.
We had a really great time with the crowd. Similar to this movie, this was a really reactive crowd. They loved this.
That was really fun.
Every single like laugh line hit. And it was a pretty packed theater.
Yeah, I would also, honestly, I would assume that that's probably mostly people who have seen it.
It was a lot of young people.
Yeah, but I'm also assuming they saw it.
Yeah, yes, but that's what I'm saying is that for a movie this old, and usually for a comedy this old, there's a lot of talk about how like comedies don't age well. This is a comedy that hit it, like not only do all the like just kind of jokes hit, I think it's aged extremely well. I watched this thing and it feels like achingly modern. Like the points that it's trying to make about men and women.
I will say the one point that I would make about that is the reason that feels more modern than some older comedies is specifically because it's directed by a woman and because we haven't really let women do that mainstream until recently.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I think that she brings...
Not that you weren't making that, just that was a point I wanted to make.
Yes. No. It's really good that all the anti-women points I've been making so far are being contrasted.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to make sure you didn't think I was like, I just wanted to say that.
No. I didn't think that you were implying anything.
But yeah, I do think that like that is particularly why it feels that way.
Yes. The audience absolutely loved it. By the way, except for mentioning that it was part of a series because he's in it, we've not talked about James Coco.
He's so good.
Who has like basically like a 2-scene performance.
Basically.
But when Henry decides he needs a little bit of money to float him by to keep up appearances so that he can find a suitable wife, he goes to his uncle, played by James Coco, and asks him to give him a $50,000 loan against $500,000 worth of collateral because his uncle hates him. James Coco basically just laughs with his mouth open and throws barbs at him for a scene. It's absolutely hilarious. He cuts a banana in the most insane way I have ever seen anyone cut food ever.
Yeah,
Do you want to describe the banana cut?
When we saw that for the first time at home, I scream laughed. I remember that so well.
It's not upsetting. It is just he cuts the banana in such a way that would simply not occur to most people.
I also don't think that that's necessarily possible. You'd have to have the sharpest knife in the world.
That's the thing is, so what he does is he takes a banana lengthwise and he just takes what up until then just looked like a relatively dull, like fruit knife and just slices through it, skin and all. Seamlessly.
And just pulls it over to his plate. Where he then stabs like he's made like a little coin, like a banana coin with the skin still on it, and then stabs it with a fork and pulls that out of that section of the peel. It would simply never occur to me to eat a banana. Now I've heard of taking off the peel with a knife. That makes sense, but it's actually like it's violating the sanctity of the fruit because it's called a peel. You're supposed to pull it off. That's what some people would say to you about the way you eat Kit Kats, though.
I know people get really
mad about that.
I have like what I consider to be not that controversial habit.
I don't think it's that weird. I always defend you. I don't think it's that weird, but I think it's fun to make fun of.
I eat Kit Kats. I just unwrap it and I just bite directly into it.
Yeah.
And I understand that like people, they like to break off a piece and they eat them individually.
That's where the song comes from.
It's where
everyone likes to sing the song.
And it's fun. I've done it before. You know, I've experimented with Kit Kats, but people get really angry, possessively angry.
People do the same thing if you bite your string cheese.
Yes, over my misuse of. Are you not supposed to bite?
You're supposed to. That's why it's called string cheese. You're supposed to peel it.
Oh,
okay. So you also eat.
So who am I?
People get really mad when people do that.
Who am I to judge the way that James Coco eats his bananas?
Exactly. So basically, you pull the string cheese out of the fridge and you eat it wrapper and all.
Well,
I know. I was just kidding. I was kidding.
You know, the wrapper is kind of like the peel of the string cheese.
But yeah, why did you think it was called string cheese then?
Just because it's a string of cheese.
No, it's because it's stringy. You've never like opened string cheese? Like you've never peeled string cheese?
I think I have. I don't know.
It's very stringy on the inside.
Why would you? Here's what's unpleasant about that to me. Why would you dig your fingers into your food? Because that involves there's not perforations.
Because it's more fun. It's tastier that way.
You're describing digging your grubby little mitts
but here's the thing.
Cheese.
5-year-olds like doing it. 5-year-olds
this is a great defense.
I know, but what I'm saying is I think that's why people eat string cheese is because they ate it when they were a kid. And because kids like playing with their food. So it's it's a great way to get your kid to eat cheese.
Yeah.
And so as an adult, but yes, it's one of those things that people get so weird about.
Yeah. Anyway, the way that James Coco cuts a banana in this movie is really fucking weird.
Yeah.
And
even Devin thinks so, and he's weird.
And he's eating like he's eating food that entire scene and just
really loudly.
Like this like big lavish like Greek emperor.
It's a really great scene
of like fruits and yogurts and creams that he's just like tossing on each other, and he's delivering the lines like with food in his mouth. It's really, really great.
Wonderful.
I think him being the reason for this movie showing is more than appropriate.
Oh, totally.
He in a movie with a lot of great supporting performances. We actually haven't talked about any of the others. There's Henry's accountant who dresses him down in basically the first proper scene of the movie.
He's wonderful.
There's the butler who we touched on briefly.
It's Doris Roberts, the youngest I've ever seen her.
Doris Roberts plays the kind of head of household of Henrietta, who is helping along with Henrietta's lawyer to keep a staff full of people who are all scamming her out of her money.
She's so cute.
It is.
I say about a criminal.
It is bizarre seeing Doris Roberts this young, because it's just, I have only seen her as an old
I've
woman.
only ever seen her as Gordo's mom in Lizzie McGuire.
And she's...
No, I think he's her grandma or aunt.
You've never seen an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond?
I was kidding, but yeah.
Okay.
The first place I ever saw her was Lizzie McGuire.
You saw Lizzie McGuire. Well, yeah, because that's kind of like the beginner.
That's kind of like Everybody Loves Raymond, but for kids.
When you're getting into Doris Roberts, like it's really important, I think, that like
Lizzie McGuire first.
It's not, you don't necessarily need to get to the seminal text first. You just need to do the thing that is most accessible and is going to really understand her process and how she functions as an actor.
Uh-huh. If I remember correctly, she just like pulls something out of an oven, and that's like all she does.
Yeah. Oh, she's literally in an episode.
Yeah, I think she's his grandma. And I'm like 99%. I'm like 99% sure that it's Lizzie McGuire and that it's Gordo and that it's not even Stevens, but I might be being anti-Semitic. That's fine.
That's your right to do so.
As you can see in my last name, I'm allowed to say that.
Pass. Doris Roberts is really cute. She has a relatively small role here, but she's a lot of fun. And there's a scene where when they come back from the honeymoon and Henry moves into the house, she throws like a welcome party, basically saying to Henry, we're gonna get you in on the scam. You're welcome to be here, you know. And he immediately fires all of them. And it's a really great scene, because he's being met with someone who's like him, in that she just fundamentally doesn't understand what he said, like refuses, like within her own worldview, to accept that she's being fired. And it's a really great scene.
It's awesome. She's so cute.
Yeah, she's great.
What a great
actress. Do you have any other final thoughts about A New Leaf?
I don't think so.
I'm trying to think.
Is that okay?
That's completely fine. It means that we were thorough.
Okay. I just really like the movie. I just think it's really fun.
I love the movie. Even if you have never seen it and you've listened to all this anyway,
you should still watch it.
I still think you're going to watch it, and the comedy is going to hit for you.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
It's really great.
Not as hard to find as Heartbreak Kid.
Not as hard to find as Heartbreak Kid. I imagine the DVD is probably out of sale or something, or out of print or something like that. But it's a great movie. I think everybody should see it. I think it is an example of, an older comedy from like from a long time ago comedically, that still really works pretty much 100%. There's nothing in there that I see and think is like, one, unsuccessful because it's just applying to a different sensibility, but two, I think it is a largely unproblematic comedy.
Largely, there is one problematic joke, and that's it.
Which joke is it again?
Right before the bears maul her, the thing that he imagines is Native Americans coming to grab her.
Yeah.
But it is just that.
That is kind of the one moment where you're like, ugh.
That is the one moment where you're like, this was made in the 70s. But that's it.
I think you can say, at least I'm like, well, he's like not the greatest guy, so he would imagine something problematic.
I mean, that's what I do when I'm watching a movie like that. Is I also do that for me, where I'm like,
this is from the perspective of a shitty person.
Yeah, this is from the perspective of the main character, not necessarily the director writer, and that's how I get through stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily make it true, but yes, I prefer to look at it like that, especially when it's smaller.
Aside from one moment, that you could,
other than that,
almost
just
basically,
worth mentioning.
You could almost basically, absolutely, that you could almost cut out of the movie without affecting it
absolutely.
At all. You just show the bear twice.
Yeah, just show the bear twice.
Really great.
The bear's really funny.
The bear's really good. I don't know who was in that bear costume.
I don't know, but they were getting their money's worth.
I don't think they made
love him.
I'd have to look at the 71 supporting actor nominees. But
you don't think the bear made it?
I don't think the bear made it.
That's too bad. I also underrated thing about the bear. I think he's like the same size as her. He like comes up behind
he's like
her
not
and just grabs her.
He's not like a big guy.
I love him so much.
I love that his imagination is a guy in a bear suit.
I know, it's really funny.
They didn't get a bear. A New Leaf. I don't really have anything else other to say about it. Catch it if you can.
Still playing at Metrograph today, but you got to go back in time a couple weeks if you want to watch it today.
Yes. I don't know. I love this movie. I love all of Elaine May's movies. Yeah. I hope more of them show so that we have opportunities to talk about this, or also just so I can have any way to watch Heartbreak Kid.
I would just like to see them. Yeah, I would watch Heartbreak Kid again in a theater.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that
6 times a week. I would do that.
Yeah. So before we wrap up here, I figured it would be fun for me to a thing that we actually haven't touched about this in any aired podcast, but I feel like we can go back here and talk a little bit about the genesis of this show and the original pitch, which is that we both love going to movies, but you have a much more realistic way of incorporating them into your schedule. You know what I mean? Like yes. You will not go to a late night movie when you have somewhere to be early the next night. Whereas
unless it's something that I'm really interested in.
I might send it to you and say, what if we go do this? Is a longstanding habit of mine. Part of why I do this is so that I can go to more of the movies that you're not necessarily disinterested in. Like, it's like if I said, let's throw them on at home, or if it was playing at, 6:30 instead of 9:30, you would probably agree to them.
Yeah. It's just that I don't want to be out every night.
But it's also so that I can go out and try more of these things. Yeah. And I do that, not only just with other people for this podcast, but also just with other people for fun, and also sometimes on my own. So I thought it would be a fun segment with you to talk about some of the movies that I went and saw on my own that you didn't come with. Mm-hmm. You can describe why you elected not to come with. Like, I'm not going to criticize. In fact, you would actually be criticizing me for making the time to do so.
Yay!
And you can basically say if my description of it, having seen it, compels you to feel like you want to watch it at all.
Sure.
Okay. So there are only 2 this week, actually, because it's been kind of slow. We're coming back from the holidays. The first one it's called Society of the Snow. It's a new film from Jay Bayona, who is probably best known to American audiences for directing the middle Jurassic World movie. He's kind of a protege of Guillermo del Toro, but he's directed this movie about it's based on a real life story about a Chilean rugby team who crash lands in the Andes. Many of the passengers die. And then about 40 or so, I think, live out of the plane during the winter in the Andes, slowly resorting to more and more dire things to survive. And 16 of those people were eventually rescued. Why did you decide not to come with and see this movie?
Well, so the reason that you saw it was because it was the movie go, which means we only got to see it from Friday to Thursday of that week. And we were already booked in the times where I would have seen movies.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of long and kind of heavy. I don't really want to do that after work on a Tuesday. You didn't want to
watch a movie about a fight for survival in the worst
Here's
conditions?
the thing. I would like to see that movie, honestly. Like, that's the type of movie I would like to see it. I don't want to see it on a time crunch.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see it when I'm not in the right headspace for it.
Yeah.
And obviously, sometimes you just don't have control over stuff like that, but a lot of the time you do. And that's generally how I feel is I have control over this. I don't have to do that to myself on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, I did. I wouldn't say I had a good time.
No, but you saw it while I was at work.
It's a rough sit is what I would say. It's not easy it's certainly not
But
pleasant.
like you get to get out of it and there's daylight.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, I actually think that is kind of helpful. Mm-hmm. Whereas I don't think we would have been able to see it together at a time where there would have been daylight after. I think I just would have been depressed.
So do you fully acknowledging that you said it's a movie that you are interested in.
Yeah, I would like to see it, but I don't regret not going with you.
Okay, you don't regret not going with me.
No, if we had more time. I don't actually even remember what we did last weekend anymore. Was last weekend New Year's?
Probably.
Oh yeah, so I had COVID.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have COVID, I might have gone and seen the film with you.
Now.
I'm fine now. And well, they can't catch it 2 weeks from now through YouTube.
You don't know that. We're still learning more facts.
Okay. That's the new thing that they learn.
Yeah.
You can catch it through YouTube.
So Society of the Snow.
But yeah, I might have seen it with you if there was a time, but I wasn't able to go outside until Monday.
And you don't regret skipping the screening. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. The other one I saw is the new documentary by Steve McQueen. It's called Occupied City. It is a 4.5-hour documentary about it is footage that he shot during lockdown and various stages of COVID in Amsterdam. And when he shows you a specific location or building, he will put over that narration of what was happening there during the removal of the Jews, removal and murder of the Jews during World War II. Uh-huh. And you will get lots of very specific stories about what might have happened at, a building that was located where this, business is now, or what happened in this park. There are a lot of really interesting juxtapositions. Like there's a really memorable scene where he has narration about how at the time Jews were kind of having a lot of their rights, to own property, to conduct business, to do things, and how they were having their freedoms restricted, kind of put over footage of people protesting that they are having their freedoms impinged upon by having to wear masks, to really put things in perspective. It is an extremely overwhelming filmmaking experience. Mm-hmm. I got out of it and I was like, that was really powerful and I loved it. But it is 4.5 hours long.
Yep. And similarly, it was also the Movie Go. So you saw one for the previous week's Movie Go, and this was this week's Movie Go. So similarly, there was only a week. So no, I don't regret not seeing it with you because we did not have 4.5 hours in this specific week to go see that movie. It's something I was not disinterested in.
Yeah.
We discussed seeing it during the film festival and ultimately decided not to.
Yeah. So when this played at the New York Film Festival, where we went and saw a handful of movies, and this was one that we were considering having be one of our
but the
movies.
reason we didn't end up going to it wasn't just because it was a crazy long and sad looking 4.5 hour documentary. It was also because the only day we could have seen it was a day we were also seeing something else that night. And it sounded just too long and too tiring to see in tandem with another movie.
It would have been really arduous because I think we would have come out of this. It's like I said, it's overwhelming. It's pretty devastating.
We would have had an hour till the next movie.
You would have had an hour. And then I think the movie we were going to see that night was Poor Things.
I think so.
Which is...
I don't really want to go into that movie with that headspace.
Which is not exactly a breezy little... It's quite long and it's fairly heady.
Yeah. Certainly lighter.
Heady's not really... It's comedic in tone.
It is. And
it deals
it's not
with serious stuff.
And I wouldn't say it's like a light movie, but it is a lighter movie than that.
Yes. So... Same thing, interested, don't regret not going.
Yeah, it is just the circumstances of the thing.
Let me ask you, with a movie with such an extremely long runtime, what is a circumstance in which you would be able to go see that?
I don't know. If we were fully booked this weekend. We were already fully booked. That was never going to be possible. If we were not fully booked this weekend and the trains were running fine, and we were able to see it this afternoon, I probably would have seen it. There was no way we were going to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I think all I've done with this segment here, which I think I enjoyed doing, we'll probably do next time you're on.
Yay.
Is
I got my own segment.
Demonstrate that I have a problem. And see, here's the thing is that I like going over it and I like having the opportunity to talk about some things that I can't dedicate a whole episode to.
Sure. And I also like talking to you about the movies you go to that I haven't seen.
All I do is make myself look like more of an insane person.
You are an insane person though.
Yeah.
You're just painting yourself correctly.
When I went,
and that's okay.
When I went to the film forum to go see, occupied city, I was very easily the only person under 40 there.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was
happens.
like a real
That happened to me when I was in high school. Me and my friend, we were 17. So we were like just able to get into R-rated movies without it being a problem. So, and it was an R-rated movie. It was, did I say it already? We went to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
No.
And so we went in like packed theater, entirely people over the age of 40.
Yeah.
Like completely, there were no other young people. We were two 17-year-olds.
Teens weren't trying to get into Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
But it was like fully sold out. It was probably in what now is the Dolby that used to be the Lowe's.
Yeah.
AKA the best singular theater in the whole city before they tore it down to make the Dolby.
Yeah.
I like the Dolby, but I'm still a little bitter.
Yeah, I know. This is we talk
I know
about
I say this every time.
I feel like we talk about this.
I know, but I like it so much and I can't find any pictures of it.
It is a little torturous that you have to go to like the corpse of your childhood movie
I
theater.
do. I love that theater because it was so nice. It was like, it looks like an old timey movie theater, similar to the Metrograph, similar to the what's the one, the Village one?
The Film Forum?
No.
The Village East?
Yes, thank you.
The Village East is
this one.
Yes. Well, you do because I'm like they have the vaunted ceiling. And the chandelier,
yeah. That's what I meant.
Which is just absolutely like
yeah,
gorgeous.
and they didn't have that, but they had the red seats and they had the red velvet curtain.
Yeah.
They had the little elephants on the bottom, which looks like a Broadway theater. I don't know. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I really loved it, and I'm still so sad that I can't show it to you.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. I'm not actually cutting her off because this is a thing she says to me.
He's heard me say this a bunch of times,
weekly.
and I can't find any pictures of it. So if anyone has any pictures of it, please send them to me.
If you can't tell, I like going to movie theaters, so I am sad that I can't go to this one.
Sorry that I just torture you about the fact that you can't see this movie theater.
Well, we bring this up kind of a lot because we're in the area,
and we're always in that theater.
Yes,
and every time I'm in the Dolby, I'm like, I like this theater. I wish it was somewhere else.
Yeah. I don't know. Any other final thoughts about either of the movies we discussed today, about any of the other new releases we've talked about?
No,
it's kind of the doldrums. I think we're probably going to try and incorporate on some upcoming episodes, some more talk about recent releases, just so that we can kind of, I also, that's the other thing too, is going to the new releases is such a huge part of our movie going habits. Keeping up with that, keeping up with how audiences are receiving what's being presented to them as new is, important.
It's interesting.
So we'll be back soon, probably it's January. Yeah. That's the frustrating thing.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you think is going to be haunted in next year's January release?
Oh, geez. So it was Robot
last year, Crazy Robot.
Pool this year.
And there's already Imaginary Friend movies coming out this year. So it's not going to be that.
There are 2 Imaginary Friend movies coming out, I think, before like April. It's crazy. In the first quarter. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that would be haunted. Well, it'll be a leaf. A new leaf. A haunted leaf.
Do you think they're going to just straight up take a Stephen King adaptation this time?
Or
do you think they just make too many of those badly anyway?
So in terms of like his just like haunted object ones, you've got The Mangler, which is a trilogy.
I would watch the hell out of that.
You have
there's Cell.
There's Cell, which is the
haunted cell phone.
Yeah, the haunted haunted.
Ooh, cell phones are big now.
Well, it's
haunted.
It's the same thing as like the old like the text you used to get that was like forward this to 4 friends.
Yeah.
Via SMS text message, or you'll die by midnight, and it has like the like a creepypasta picture on it, and that's basically the premise of Cell. Christine, one of his couple haunted car books.
They're not going to make another Christine.
No, it's being remade right now.
Oh my God.
By Brian Fuller, the guy who did
Okay,
Hannibal.
I like him.
He has described it as a romance.
Okay, I like him, right? He's the Pushing Daisies guy.
I can't remember if he's Pushing Daisies. He's Hannibal. That's what I think.
Yeah, he's Hannibal. He's Pushing Daisies. He's Dead Like Me. Okay. And he's the first season of American Gods.
From a Buick 8 has never been adapted. That's his other scary car movie or scary car book.
We could do that. But yeah.
Trucks. He directed an adaptation of Trucks into Maximum Overdrive, a movie that I would love an opportunity to sit and discuss on the show one day. Yeah. So that's my answer is it'll be a haunted leaf.
Okay. I think that's cute.
It'll be a new haunted leaf.
I think that's so cute.
If it's cute, that's bad. That's a bad pitch. I mean, well, let me ask you this.
Isn't that, no, never mind. I was going to spoil a movie that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, let me ask you this then. Was Megan cute?
Yeah.
Megan was cute.
Megan was adorable.
Okay.
I would see that doll at a store and I would be like, I'm getting that. I want that in my house. I really hope that she sings Titanium by Sia while I'm trying to fall asleep.
That was the problem here, is that there was no scene where Wyatt Russell never sang. I'm trying to think of a thematically appropriate song to sing for Night Swim.
I can't think of any water songs right now. I think it's just because I'm on the spot.
Working on my night swim. That's the thing, is if he had done that,
I would have liked that movie more.
I honestly do think that it would add half. He
could sing "Shallow" by Lady Gaga. I'm off the deep end.
Honestly,
watch
great.
As I dive in.
That's it.
That would be hilarious.
Actually,
that would be hilarious.
That's what it is. If Wyatt Russell sings "Shallow"
while he's jumping into the pool, that would have been awesome.
To like murder his daughter or whatever. Yeah, I do think that is smart.
That would have been awesome.
That's all I have to say about the, of course, thematically related films, Night Swim and
the double feature that everyone has been asking for.
The double feature, and of course, both movies equally important to you and
equally good
and indicative of your taste in film. I was trying to think of any similarities earlier today. They are both films in which a man attempts to murder his wife at one point.
Spoilers for Night Swim.
I guess spoilers
that you
for
promised
Night
you weren't going to give.
Shit. Well, honestly, you're fine.
I know. Who cares? Nobody's going to see that movie.
It's Night Swim. Nobody's going to see it.
But the director ends up listening to this podcast and it's like, hey.
Yeah. So this has been Bad First Impression. Thank you so much to my guest, Lily Steinberg, for coming to 2 separate screenings and rolling with the punches and finally actually getting you on the show after a lot of kind of jerking you around.
After like 12 screenings that we've talked about.
Yeah. When we've got some fun ones coming up soon.
We do.
We are a little unsure of release order, so I don't actually know what is coming next week because that's all in flux because of the lost episode. I'm going to keep building up the mythology of that episode. I'm going to keep talking about it as like this like lost masterpiece.
Well, because here's the thing. They're never going to hear it. They don't know.
It
could be the best episode of a podcast ever.
But we really nailed it. So I would actually love to reveal what that episode will be about. All I will do is drop the hint to you that it is about it. I'll tell you what, it was a triple feature of a trilogy. We did go watch.
It wasn't just 3 movies.
It wasn't just 3 unrelated. It was 3
related movies.
But look forward to an episode on that here soon. We'll reveal on socials what's happening there. But yes, thank you so much for being here today, Lily. Always welcome to come back here. We love the work you do for the podcast. All the really fun Photoshops we have are done by Lily. And I hope you enjoy them. And I hope you enjoy hearing her on here as we discuss new releases.
I hope you enjoy getting a face to the demented person who makes those Photoshop edits.
Yes. You can finally like have someone to blame. So if you were assuming it was me based off of character, it's actually not.
It's actually me.
Yes. This has been Bad First Impression. Thank you so much. Thank you to Kristen Eng for my logo artwork. Thank you to Lily Steinberg for helping to produce the show and for doing social media. You can find the show on all socials at BFI Pod. Please help the show by rating, reviewing, and following on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, now on YouTube with video episodes. I believe this is going to be our second released video episode. And wherever else you get your podcasts. My name is Devin Warner. You can find me at What If Devin on all socials. Lily, do you have anything to plug?
You can follow my crocheting account, Lily's Crocheting IG.
Yes. She made this.
I did.
And many other things.
Yeah. For the audio listeners, I'm wearing a really cool sweater.
Yeah, it's really cool. That sounded
just imagine the coolest sweater you've ever seen, and that's what I'm wearing, and I made it.
I sounded sarcastic when I said it's really cool. I was being sincere.
I know you like my stuff.
It's a great, and I own many Lily Steinberg originals. So this has been Bad First Impression. Thank you so very much. Until next time, take care.